flexing the feet and the fingers. Yeah? So there he's been going from the periphery. Again, looking at this relationship between the flexors and extensors, getting us absolutely bamboozled. Go fast so you can't come in and think. See what happens if you just let the system do its thing. And now he's going to go back and go more for the central organisation again. So how about, before we begin it, it's not a long lesson that we're going to do a little bit of your hands and feet again. Just get that idea of we were coming through the periphery, not giving you time to think too much about what you were doing. He didn't really pay attention much to the centre, but maybe you could begin to feel, just as you do it, what does happen in your centre when you stop thinking so much? When you're given something that's novel, different, bit crazy. That it was going through on diagonals and the same side and both sides together, and your head was free. And then just let your arms down again. Because I really loved the comment, and I don't know who made it this morning, about, I can feel my hands and feet. Because, you know, it's a really interesting thing. How often do we pay attention to our hands, especially our hands, and our feet in our image, even though we use them all the time? So come up to sitting. Now go down again, all those went, oh, and see if you can come up without going, oh. You're going to cross your legs so that one leg, so start with your legs long, and you're going to cross your legs so that one leg is in front of the other. Indian style. And feel which leg you have in front. Have in front. Yeah. And take them out again. And do it a little slower this time. Still the same thing. And feel, how does all of you help out with that movement? How does that movement, starting from your feet, drawing in, travel through you? Yeah, just sort of do one leg at a time if you can. And I don't mean get one and then, but just what do you do? Because you'll have a habit. So is that habit tied up with which way you like to shift your weight, or which way you like to take your head, or which way you take your chest? Where your weight transfers. And then could you do it bringing the other leg in front? Just go slowly enough that you've got to track. Where does my head go? Where does my pelvis go? Just as because a habit is usually something that involves all of us. That's why it feels comfortable. That's why it feels familiar often. Even if it's maybe not a great habit, most of us will be in the picture. So we get a particular way of our pelvis going, and of our chest going, and of our weight going, and our eyes. Then could you do the same thing with your hands behind you on the floor? And just see, does that change it by having some weight on your arms behind you? By having a bigger base of support? So does having your arms behind you help you to find more movement through your upper chest and your torso? Or for some of us who really don't like having our arms behind you, does that inhibit the movement in some way? So one of the interesting things he says in this lesson, we're doing this lesson for all those people who are finding it difficult to organise their arms. So all those people who have got these wonderful pelvises and hips, but for their arms to be weight-bearing and to be able to weight-bear through your arms and still organise all of this, this is for you. Okay, so leaving your arms behind you, we're going to have your your left foot in front. And you'll find out as we go on, but you don't want them too close. You want them that you can easily shift your weight a little bit through your legs, that holding them close together isn't going to inhibit. So just feel it. If you pull them in with your hands, which is not where you could get them normally, you've actually used your hands, and put your hands behind you, what's that done to the movement of your pelvis? Yeah. So another reason that he did this, and it's a wonderful reason, is that there were a lot of people, young people in Amherst, who'd done a lot of yoga and a lot of other movement modalities. And he was saying, if you're always pulling your arm, getting into what you think is the posture, you're going to limit yourself. So a lot of people in Amherst, if you watch, they can get their legs flat to the floor. No? No, not you. But it's really that idea that as soon as you use your hands to pull it in, you've probably constrained your base of support a little bit. So we're really interested in hands behind, bringing your legs in softly, left leg in front. And you're going to begin by simply rotating your right shoulder forward as your left shoulder goes back, and you're bringing them back to the middle. And you do it again. The right shoulder forward and the left shoulder back, and you bring them back to the middle. So we're just going in one direction. And really, some of you play around with where your hands are, whether you want them even a little bit further away or where your fingers are pointing, so that you can begin to feel that this turning is not coming through your middle or your pelvis, but it's happening in your shoulder blades, your collarbones, and your upper torso. So that we're finding a position where the shoulder coming forward is going to move through the sternum, your first rib, and it goes back with the left. So again, just play around with where you want your hands to get that clearest for you. And as you continue to soften your intention, and to really go, it's my one shoulder going forward and one shoulder going back. So I can sense the sliding of my shoulder blades over my ribs. And start to notice, if you just keep softening your intention, all I'm doing is taking my right shoulder forward as my left shoulder goes back. So not my right middle or my, not all my habits here, but just my right shoulder forward as my left shoulder goes back, and feel what would your head start to do. how would your head begin to respond to this movement of softly taking your right shoulder forward as your left shoulder at exactly the same time goes back? Jane, I'd suggest you sit on a table and do it. Yeah? And anyone else who's really sort of struggling, just so that you're not as constrained in your legs, Jane. Yeah? So you're still going to have your hands behind you. Because we've just given her a little bit bigger base of support. So then as your right shoulder begins to come forward, where does your weight roll? And what would happen if I suggested that as your right shoulder came forward, your weight could shift to your left to allow your left knee to go toward the floor? As your right shoulder, it's always the same. Your right shoulder's going forward as your left shoulder's going back, and you're coming back to the middle. So it's always the same. So as your right shoulder's coming forward, your left shoulder's going back, and you feel as that's happening, you could get longer, weight shifting gently across to the left to let your left knee begin to go down toward the floor. And this is where some of you might need to reorganize where your feet are a little bit. And just feel, does your belly have to get longer to let your left knee go down toward the floor on the left-hand side? And could it then make sense somehow that your right ear might start heading towards your right shoulder? As I said, keep the soft intention. That is the right shoulder is going forward, the left shoulder is going back. So don't forget the left shoulder. That's the constant. This right shoulder going forward as the left shoulder is going back, which is initiating the movement. And it's a very clever way of him getting your upper torso to move. What would happen, Helen, what would help to let your left knee go forward to the ground as your right shoulder came forward? And your right ear. Yeah, there you go. The right ear gets closer to your right shoulder as it's coming forward. Because again, it's totally different to the last lesson. All of a sudden, we've sort of constrained the periphery. Your weight bearing on your hands and your feet and your pelvis. So you've got to find movement through your middle now. So now, could you allow your chin to soften forward towards your chest? If it could rest on your chest, that'd be great. But if it doesn't, that's fine. And continue to do this same movement of your right shoulder forward as your left shoulder's back. And feel how you could sort of get this sense again of the right shoulder, your right ear going toward your right shoulder. Some of you might even feel that your chin can sort of, the side of your face can roll along your right collarbone. Don't make it, but that might be a possibility. So as the right collarbone's coming forward with the right shoulder, it's sort of leaving a whole ledge there for you to rest your head on. And let's add one more thing. You can take a rest whenever, but if you're still okay, same idea, starting on your chin, right ear going around as your left knee goes toward the floor. And could you think right from the moment of starting that your eyes are looking toward your right shoulder? That your eyes are looking, so they'll be sliding across in the sockets to the right to look at your right shoulder. So that your eyes are moving across to look at your right shoulder. But you're not turning your head to do this. You're still side bending your head as your eyes go right. Maybe you're feeling as your right sit bone starting to lift away from the floor. Yeah. It's not a constraint at all. No. So something's starting to, as your weight shifts, as it keeps shifting over to the left sit bone, yeah, your right sit bone, your right hip will start to lift away from the ground. And this is one of those, well, they all are, but this is one of those movements where you're really feeling your way. You're not making it happen. Just keep softening your intention. Because that's the thing with softening our intention. It's like we're getting in under all our habits. Getting in under all of our intentional habits. So you're starting to get this sort of long arc between your right shoulder, even though it's coming forward, a long arc between your right shoulder and your left hip. A real diagonal. And some of you are even beginning to feel, and please don't feel you have to do this, that your left knee, your right knee starts to pick up off the ground a little bit. Don't make it happen though. We're looking for the movement through your middle to organise your arms and legs and your head. And to do this easily, we've got to reduce the effort. So really feel, am I pushing into my hands? Can I find that gentle press, soft ground? Have a pause. Again, how's this influenced your sense of length and width along the front of you, along the back of you, maybe through the middle of you? Come up once more to sitting. Let's just do one more variation. So still with your left leg in front. Arms behind. And this time, so the first time we took your head forward, could you tilt it back a little bit this time? And do it in a really comfortable way so you know you can still shift the weight easily across your arms. You're not stuck into the ground. So it only has to be a little, just where it's comfortable. And again, you're going to take your right shoulder forward as your left goes back and feel your left knee goes down. This time we're still bringing your right ear to your right shoulder, but we're just bringing it from an extended position of your head. So as your right shoulder goes back again and your left comes forward, back to neutral, your head goes back behind you again. So how does this orientation of the head, does that open up anything different? And you could still begin to feel, even with your head back, that right from the beginning of the movement, you're looking towards your right shoulder with your eyes. Your eyes are moving right in your eye sockets to look toward the right shoulder. You're still thinking of your left leg lengthening toward the floor, your belly getting longer, but it's with a real softness in your back, your ribs softening. It's rocking forward over your left sit bone. And then next time, so you've started with your head back, you've brought your right shoulder forward, you've gone to the side, you've looked at your left shoulder, and as you return the shoulders back, you take your head down to rest on your chest again. Toward the right shoulder. Yeah. You're doing exactly the same movement you've been doing, except when you get there, you're bringing your head, as you bring your shoulders back, you're bringing your head to rest down. And then you do the same movement again, starting with your chin down. As your shoulder comes forward, the ear comes to rest. But this time, as you bring your shoulders back to the middle, your head tilts back. As I said, some of you might be beginning to find a whole ledge to rest on of your collarbone and your shoulder and your shoulder blade. And it's always done with this leading of your right shoulder forward as your left shoulder goes back. And leave it and have a rest on your back. And is anything different in your breathing after that? in maybe the parts of you in your torso that are available to breathe in. If you're going to roll your head left and right, what's the difference? Where does the angle of your chin go when you roll to the right and when you roll to the left? And many of you will probably be finding the angle of your chin is going much more down towards your shoulder on one side. So what's happening differently in your neck, in your upper ribs, in your shoulders that might be allowing that to happen? Maybe you're getting some weight shift in your upper back, different to what you might normally get. Keeping that sense that you've got at the moment, that really lovely sense of self, and slowly bring yourselves up to standing. Keep that sensation of just feel. What happens when we start to mobilize our middle like that, when we ask our middle to be more available for movement? And again, the reason it can become more available is because your limbs are softer. Have a walk. And walk where you can keep a sense of this exploration. How this has influenced your contact with the ground on one side compared to the other. Maybe your face on one side compared to the other. The sense of a diagonal. And we'll return to do more of this tomorrow. And now, just keeping this nice space you've got at the moment, and you can come together for Jen.